Guys, Frank here with another episode of Modern Church Leader, coming to you, with a great guest today who has a great story, and he has a bear on his wall. So, Pastor Joby, how's it going today?
It's going great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I live in San Diego, and the sun is kind of out today. So,
Okay.
it's been overcast.
I'm in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and the sun is also out today. So
yeah, I mean, is there a lot of guys in Jacksonville, and you're in Jacksonville Beach, that are like hunters like you? Like,
yeah,
I expect you to be in Wyoming or something like that.
Nah, Jacksonville is like the capital of South Georgia. So
okay, all right.
This is like the end of the South. If you get more south from us, somehow you end up in the north. Like if you get to Orlando, you might as well be in Queens or something. It's terrible.
End up in the north.
Yeah. To go to Tampa, it's like Ohio.
Right.
It's not good.
Right. Yeah. It's too good. Well, man, you have a cool story. We didn't get to meet, but you were at North Coast Church out in Vista, California, teaching at their conference. One of our team connected with you and got you to come on the show. So thanks for joining us. Super appreciate it. And man, pleasure. I love you planted a church. You were starting to tell me a little bit of the story, and then we hit record. So I'd love to hear maybe a little more of the story. Like you planted a church a while back, and even the precursor to that, you started doing youth ministry and things were going really well. So tell us, give us your journey into ministry and kind of fast forward to today.
Yeah, man, this is my 30th year in vocational ministry. So I started when I was 19. I'm 49 now. Didn't really grow up in church, got saved at a summer camp, and it was awesome. And then I went home to find a church, and it wasn't awesome.
Yeah.
And so, I was like, are we talking about the same Jesus? Because that guy at camp was awesome. Anyway, so
Camp Jesus is way more fun.
Oh, man, he's the best. And funny enough, he's heaven Jesus, so that'd be good. It's going to be good to see him. So at 19, felt called to ministry, did student ministry for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And moved here to Jacksonville in 2003 to be the youth pastor at a church. And in about 2008, we started a brand new service there. We had a bunch of teenagers and a bunch of their parents, and we had a contemporary service. And anytime you call it contemporary, it's not, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so they put me in charge of a service to kind of reach the gap. But I didn't want to do like a 20-somethings kind of service, because I don't know, man, the concentration of that much ignorance in one room just scared me to death. And so we just ran this service, and we started it at 1122. That's where the name came from.
But why 1122? But let's just start with the why did you even do that? Because that came before the name came.
Because I just thought people could remember that time. Because if you start at 11, like, is it 11? Is it 11:30? Like, when does it start?
Yeah.
And so I just said, let's just start at 11:22. That's got a ring to it. And then we proof texted the whole Bible. And thankfully, Mark 11:22 says Jesus answered, have faith in God. So we had a verse. So
there you go.
And so I got this worship leader in town to come and lead worship. And all we did, he and his wife and me and my wife became like family. I mean, he's still on staff with me now.
Mm-hmm.
We do vacations together. I love this family.
Yeah.
And we just sit around my kitchen table, and we'd all been church staff people for a while, we were like the youth pastor critics that would sit in the back row and complain about how lame big church was, and be like, if I was in charge, I would never do this and that. And then one day the Lord was like, all right, Scooter, now you're in charge. So
get out there.
Yeah. So we just did church that we always dreamed of. Now, there's, lots of people are doing it, but we just would worship intensely, and I would teach the Bible. And I had no idea that people would really show up for it. So anyway, within about a year, it had outgrown the whole church. And then my senior pastor came to me and said, I've prayed about this, and I have a piece about it, and you should go plant a church. And I thought, that's funny, because I just threw up in my mouth a little. So it's weird how the Spirit manifests himself, peace in your life and vomit in mine. So I was like, are you crazy? So he let me stay at our church and exist there as the Church of 1122 for like a year and a half while we raised money and found a facility and built it out and figured out things like we should probably get a bank account and insurance and all that stuff. And then we launched. And we launched in the fall of 2013. And I kind of hesitate to tell church planners my church planting story because I didn't mean to, and I don't know. And I don't know how to plant a church, so I'm not the guy to ask because God was moving in such a significant way. We just had to hold on and not mess it up.
Right.
So, I mean, opening our very first service we ever had, 3,364 people showed up to it.
It's incredible.
I thought, I hope enough people show up next weekend that we can do it again. And so we've just been doing that for 10 years, 11 years now.
I mean,
that's it.
That's simple, not rocket science.
That's it. So we meet our broadcast location is in an old renovated Walmart.
Yes. That's amazing.
So I teach from layaway. If you're like a millennial and younger, you don't even know what layaway is. We used to have the money first and then you got your stuff.
They know what like a firm is and things like that now, right? Like it's like the new version of, it's not layaway, but the payment plan and all that kind of thing. So it's like, it's this generation's version of layaway. But I remember Kmart was right by my house.
Oh yeah.
So I remember layaway. That was the thing back in the day.
Yeah, that was key to Kmart's unbelievable success was the amount of layaway.
It's still working today.
Kmart is unbelievable. Oh, okay.
Oh, that's that's pretty cool. What, like, give me some of the, I'm sure you've talked about, that's a long journey. It's amazing what God's done. What are some of the things you learned or you have learned over the, that whole experience and I don't know, the first few years of planting the church that you look back on now and go, wow.
Yeah. One of the biggest things I learned, and this is especially for all you like rebellious youth pastor, wannabe church planner guys, is that you should plant from under authority. Why in the world would you ever expect God to give you any measure of authority until you learn to live under the authority that he has put you under now? And that honor is a decision. Respect is earned and honor is given. And the way you exit one season determines how you enter the next. And so we decided to just do our absolute best to honor the church that was sending us out.
Right.
And I think that had a lot to do with like the supernatural blessing that we received when we started. And I don't know, nobody ever told me that. You just kind of, I caught that. I wasn't taught that.
Yeah. Yeah. You said, you're not a church planner. It doesn't sound like the situation you were in was like a church planting thing, but it just, the senior pastor at that church was like, hey man, you should go do this. Like, was there any DNA? I don't know if you're a part of any denomination or anything like that. Like, was there any DNA into church planting at all?
Or how about this for American church history? So I was on staff at a United Methodist church, but I'm not a Methodist, wasn't a Methodist. And so there was definitely some lids to, my future and all that stuff. And so they planted us as a non-denominational, really reformed church. I mean, we're an Acts 29 church. We're non-denominational, but I think the Wesley brothers would be rolling over in their graves. But I think it's the first time ever the United Methodists have planted a non-denominational church.
Put that in the next book, or maybe it's in one of the first two.
Yeah, it is. But it's crazy, right? But my senior pastor, his name's Jerry Sweat, and he's just the best Christian I've ever met in real life. I mean, just straight up, like he, how about this? His son is a youth pastor on staff with me here. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that is cool.
So his son, who was in my youth group at his church, is now my son and daughter's youth pastor here at this one.
Yeah. Super cool.
Super cool.
Yeah. So you're still connected with them. It sounds like pretty.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah. Man, that's super cool. Okay. So that's one of the lessons. Like, any other lessons that come to mind where you're like, man, we learned this at the beginning or during the journey?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. I mean, we made the decision to be family, to just say, look, our staff is family. We love you. We love your family. You guys matter to us. That there's a lot of really bright lights to that, and there's a lot of deep, dark shadows to that. I just think the pain is worth it.
Right.
So my best friends in the world are the people that I get to work with, and I've been living life with these people for the last 10 or 12 years. And But you've got to be careful with that too, man. It's hard to fire your sister, but sometimes you have to. And it's hard when you outgrow somebody that you just love them so much, and it's just not working. And so, and one of the things that I learned is, man, I'm a Bible preacher. I'm a gospel slinger. So I like to give good news, and by nature, I am an encourager.
Right.
Well, what I thought were like encouraging, let me breathe some life into you words were heard as promises. So you got to be really careful with that. You know, you could see a guy and be like, bro, in 10 years, I could see this in your life. Well, the moment I said that, he started counting down the calendar. And when he wasn't like the vice president of 1122 at the 10-year mark, he's like, but you said, I was like, uh-oh, yeah, I did. No, that's not what I meant.
Right.
I was trying to just encourage you, in some areas. So
yeah.
I've had to pay close attention to that. And then it's a really weird thing, especially, when we started, and still, we didn't start normal. We had like 14 staff members on day one. Today we have.
Yeah, that's not normal. I would.
Yeah. But even then, it felt like tight. Like,
right.
We could all have dinner at my house. Right.
Yep.
Now we have, I don't know, 300 or something.
That's crazy.
So. Right. So I meet new staff people at every staff meeting, and they're like, oh, yeah, I've been working here 6 months. I'm like, oh, that's neat. It's very nice to meet you. And so that means people that you used to be in every meeting with, now you only see at the all staff events, because that's just the nature of these kind of things. And so, navigating that kind of stuff can be tough.
Yeah.
Can be tough.
What's interesting, church planning, startup business stuff, different but similarities, right? And I remember the same, like we used to meet every Thursday with the whole team, and at the beginning it was 4 of us, and then it was 10, and then it's like now the whole team meets once a quarter, because the whole team can't meet every Thursday. It would waste too much time. But it's a weird thing to go through. And same thing, like when you got people that are with you early who are awesome in that phase, and then you gotta, some people can grow with it. Some people, it's not their thing, and you got to transition, and it's tough. So, I can totally resonate.
There's this thing too, like the human mind, especially in America, when they primarily see a person on a stage and on screens with lights and cameras and microphones, their mind just puts them in this like celebrity category. It just does. And let's say, even in the purest version, God does an amazing thing in somebody's life, and I just happen to be the one with the microphone taped to my face when God did the thing.
Right.
So they begin to associate me with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I've woken up with me every day of my life. I'm the same turd I have always been from the youth ministry days to today. I'm just that guy. And now you live in a context where all these people work for you and serve you and honor you, and and those things are fine. And then there's that crew that was like setting up chairs with you back in the day, and they're like, why do people stand in line for you to sign a book? I don't understand.
Tell them all to go home. Tell them to stop.
They obviously don't know you very well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it. But I love the team that we have and the culture that we have. And
how many of the original whatever it was, 12 or so, are still on staff with you today?
Probably some 7.
Okay.
And probably all but 2 or 3, if they're not on staff, they still attend here.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
we had some mamas go home to raise babies.
Yeah.
Some have planted churches. There's only a couple. Let me think. There's only a couple that aren't connected somehow with us still, either as a partner or a member of the church now. Or,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. God's been good to us.
Yeah, man. It's an amazing story. Just unpacking it. What else? Like, this is just fun. Like, what else have you learned over the 12 years going, like, what, like you're sort of alluding, like there's the early days and what it was like, and then there's now, you know, how has it been for you to transition over time through that kind of growth? And, it was big at the beginning, but now it's a lot bigger, and you got a bunch more staff, and you meet people that are new and you don't know their names yet and all that kind of stuff. Like,
Well, at first, everybody's sort of a generalist.
Yeah.
And everything is everybody's responsibility. I can remember in an early meeting, we're all there. Everybody that works there is in the meeting. I was like, all right, look around. We're they. So I don't want to hear they didn't set up my room, because here they are. So this is us,
Yep.
Well, then very shortly, you've got to begin to bring in experts that are really good and talented in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of what you want to do, you better figure out real quickly what your unique contribution is and what you're best at, and focus not only the most amount of time on it, but your best time and energy, like best time of the day, best time of the week, that kind of stuff on it, for the sake of the church, for the edification of the church, not your own edification. And so, what that means too, as a leader, is oftentimes you feel like you have no idea what's going on all over the place.
Yeah.
And that's probably right, and probably very healthy to hire in some people better at you in those arenas, and then just turn them over and let them go. And then with that, most people in leadership positions wait way too long to raise somebody up and actually hand over responsibility and decision-making rights. Because they think, well, that person's not ready. Let's be honest. Were you ready when you got the responsibility that you, right, man? You think Peter was ready?
Right.
Jesus gave him the keys to the kingdom of God right after, like, in Caesarea Philippi.
Yep.
On the same page, he gets called the devil. So obviously he wasn't like all the way mature and ready to go. But if you wait until it's time, you're probably way too late.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it hard for you in different stages to let go of control?
Yeah, in some things.
Yeah.
And then, but as the lead pastor, there's still a couple of things that I have to know everything about. It just can't be everything.
Right. Are there areas that you found, whether it's like you should know, or that's just like you have an attachment to a certain thing, so you like to still stay involved in it?
One of them is, I think I should know, and the other one is it's just my preference.
Yeah.
And so, for me, the weekend worship services, you better not move a light without me knowing what's happening. Or, you don't get to just change a song because you felt like it, because the Spirit told you. Guess what? I know him too. So check with me, and I'll ask him, and let's just double check on that one. All right. That kind of stuff. And the reason that one functionally makes sense is because, look, if we're Nike, the weekend service is shoes. It runs everything. And so I am fully involved in all of that.
Yeah.
And then a few years ago, we brought a retreat center about an hour from here, because I think the problem with adult discipleship is adults quit going to camp. And, we look at too many screens and breathe too much air-conditioned air. And so we bought this property about an hour from here. It's about 3,000 acres, and it's got cabins, and it's incredible.
That sounds cool.
And oh my gosh, it's the best place ever. And I just love it. And I want to make sure it goes right. And so I keep a real close eye on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's just personal preference.
That's my baby. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And some of this is, I'm like legitimately asking, because I feel like, again, there's this similarity to, tightly growing and just the stuff you go through, and there's stuff that you like and that you're into, and stuff that you should know. And, letting go and control, I think, is hard for anybody that's something's growing. If you're any church planner out there, or it doesn't have to be a church planner, anybody that took over a church, right? Like through succession, and then but it's growing, and then you have to give up control or do different things. Like it can be a hard transition to go through. And hiring is also super important. Like you mentioned, you got to bring in the specialists. It's different than starting with your friend group or your whatever, like your close crew. And now I got to hire outside people and bring in specialists. What's that been like?
It's a crapshoot, man. I don't care who you use. I don't care how many personality things you do.
Yep.
I mean, the only one that's 100% is like, the disciples got it right. They prayed and cast lots, and that worked out good for them. But even that, Jesus picked one guy wrong. I mean, I know he was right because he played a role, but you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a crapshoot. So we try to grow from the inside. We try to stay somewhere around let's hire 70% or so from the inside. But with our growth, we just hadn't had time to grow people up sometimes. So So then after we look through who's here already, then our next step is try to hire our cousins, you know, like guys that you did camp with back in the day, or that kind of stuff. Or, I mean, dude, make no bones about it. Every time you see me at a conference, I got a couple of my guys with me there as my like travel companions, and they are straight trying to snipe the best people they can find. Because I figure,
I get
like,
it.
if you would pay money to go to a conference that they paid me to come speak at, you at least or at least somewhat in line with who we are.
Yeah, right.
And so it's, you know, that you've at least passed, you know, one initial test.
Yeah.
So
around a little
so we're
bit.
constantly looking.
Yeah, that's and we were joking before, right? Like, I probably wouldn't get hired at Tithely today. And you brought it up, right? Like, you know, it's gotten so much bigger, and I hate using this word in the church context, but, you know, more professional, more grown up, more all the things.
No, I wouldn't hate that. I'm pro that. In fact, part of the reason here, I didn't want to be like, you know, there's churches that have what they call an honor culture, which in my opinion is just weird. You know what I mean? And I've been to those churches and I've preached those. They're fun to go preach at. They like pick you up from your truck and carry you in and bathe you in gifts. I mean, so it's super fun, but that's kind of weird. So anyway, but when we planted the church, I was 38 years old, and I felt like the first staff meeting, I felt like it was prom. Like I had my dad's suit on, trying to act like a grown up.
Right.
And I was like, man, we've got to act like we know what we're doing. We've got to be more professional than we actually are behind closed doors, particularly with one another. One of the simple things that we did, nowhere is it written in any of our bylaws or anything. There's no rules on this, but I called every pastor and called every elder and just publicly honored them all the time. You know, like, let's just treat each other like grown-ups.
Right.
And it was amazing the positive impact that had.
Yeah, like it rippled
even the way
through.
Totally, man. Now we cut up with the best of them, but it just needs to be the right context.
Right.
You know,
when you're at camp, that's when you go to the camp, and you know, you go hunting. You have other avenues.
Totally. But and then I made some hires. I hired one of my kids' preschool directors, and she's, I don't know, 15 years older than me. Everything she did was just incredible. Like, she'd run the little preschool Christmas dinner, and it would be like you're at Ruth Chris. I was like, holy moly. So, her name's Juanita Hamilton. I was like, Miss Nita, I want to hire you to come work at 1122. And she was like, what am I going to do? I was like, just make everything better. That's what I need you to do. Just whatever we're doing, you just add your class.
Right.
Because it kind of smells like a fraternity house over there right now. I need you to class this thing up a little bit. And so
that's incredible.
We made some moves like that, because we also, from the very beginning, we were, even though we're a younger church compared to regular church, but we have been an intergenerational church from day one. And so we wanted to make sure that we were acting the part.
Yeah. I love the hire you mentioned, just come make it better. Was that, it sounds like that was like, you're like, just come do it. But in one way, was that hard, or was that hard for other people on staff to be like, oh, there's a person here whose job is literally just to make us all better?
Well, she was already a legend and everybody loved her. So her personality made it
easy.
She didn't do it. She's so excited to serve.
Yeah.
It never came across like because I tell you tech people, you know that moment when dumb guys like me don't know what to do and you go, move. Okay. She never did that. She just came alongside and be like, oh, wow, that's really cute. But
Pastor Joby,
let's put some tablecloths on these tables since we're doing this level of an event. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. So she was great.
I love the whole story. It's quite amazing. So how have you guys grown? Like, are you all still multi-campus in the same area? Like, do you have campus pastors at different locations? Are you in the same state? Have you gone out of state? Like, what's all that look like over the years?
Yeah, we're in 11 locations right now and 3 more under construction.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. 3 of them in prisons, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
our vision is that we are a movement for all people to discover and deepen a relationship with Jesus Christ. So part of the secret sauce here is we do not bifurcate between lost people and Christians. We think the church is for God, and we think God loves it when people deepen their relationship with him. And we also, I'm the kind of Calvinist that think God delights in saving people. Okay. So we've partnered with our people years ago, the guy that led me to Christ, who was a football coach that took me to the camp I got saved at, when he died, the guy that did his eulogy preached on Acts 11:24. And it says, and he was a good man, full of the Holy Spirit and faith, and a great number of people were brought to the Lord. So I got that tattooed on me. And then I was teaching on it. And I was like, listen, man, a great number in the kingdom of God is not a bunch of people. A great number is just one more.
Right.
So I need every single one of you, identify your one more and start praying that God would use you to lead your one more to Christ. And then we partnered with our people to identify the one more weekends. And all that, I mean, you can bring your friend to church whenever, but on a one more weekend, I am going to, at the end of the sermon, give an opportunity for you to surrender your life to Christ.
Yeah.
So, because when I was in college, I was leading my fraternity brothers to Christ, and I thought, oh crap, what do I do with them now? I can't take them to my church. They don't have pleated khakis. Like, what are they going to do? And so it wouldn't work. And so we did that, and then we have aggressively made room for one more all the time. And so that's been multi-site, and they're all video venues.
Right.
They all have campus pastors. And the primary job of the campus pastors is just to connect and disciple people. Dude, it's the sweetest job on the planet, by the way. If you love people and you love making disciples, you should be a campus pastor here.
Right. Because all the administrative overhead or whatever, I don't know what to call it, is all taken care of.
Bro, we are centralized like the Death Star around here, okay? Yeah. Your job. You don't have to figure out insurance and parking, and we got all that figured out, man.
Yeah.
What I need you to do is shepherd those people at that campus and get people connected, help people take next steps, care for people well, just that. You know, I tell them, I was like, you should gain 15 pounds when you become a campus pastor because you eat 2 breakfasts and 2 lunches every day because you're just going to meet with people all the time.
Right.
And if you're a golfer, you know, your handicap's going to go down by 10 because you can play golf all the time with people. So just be with people, man. So we've done that.
The job description sounds amazing.
It is. See, I told you. That's how I hire people. Some of your people are going to reach out to me right now. And now we're in, we've got a campus up in Georgia. We're looking at maybe moving to Orlando. There's about 250 people meeting in Sarasota, Florida. That's just south of Tampa, which is probably like 3 hours from here. There's about 200 adults meeting on Friday nights who have just declared they are the Church of 1122. So we kind of got to even figure that out.
Right.
Like,
isn't that amazing? Like, that's amazing to me when I've heard stories of that, crazy. You know, like North Coast. I've heard that specifically with them, you know, because we help them with some of their tech, but they're like, hey, we have these like locations that just pop up. We know there's a bunch of people over here. And like sometimes it's like, oh, they're renting a school like on their own.
Right.
Like meeting.
So this was cool. North Coast has a campus. Is it called Ramona or something like that?
Yeah.
Near you?
Yep.
Okay. So apparently there's more rednecks in Ramona than San Diego. And so is that true? Okay.
Very true.
So years ago, the Ramona crew reached out to us. They were using all 1122 stuff. And they flew out here, and the guys in charge were entrepreneurs. So they had resources, and they knew what they were doing, and they know how to get stuff done. And they were like, listen, if we could do an 1122 in Ramona, I promise you it would blow up by tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, where is that? And they're like, we're just outside of San Diego. And I'm like, well, hold on. I got a church friend. You know, Larry Osborne at North Coast. You should just do what you're doing, but just do it with them because we're all like, it's all the same team. It wouldn't even be that different. So we called Larry and Chris and made the introduction, and then that's how that thing came into existence. How cool is that? So it doesn't have to be 1122. I don't care if it's we have the dumbest church name ever, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but like I said earlier, like your name, you know, might have been crazy and just, you know, it's the time, but you were ahead of your time. It's one of the most creative church names out there now.
Well, part of what happened too when we first started is I led this guy to Christ that owned a skate park, and it was called Skate Lab. and he'd make all of these skate lab like skate stickers, you know.
Yeah.
So he just made this 1122 logo and brought me one of those die cut stickers. He's like, "Can I give these out?" I was like, "Yeah, man, yeah, as long as I can get one." Well, after a couple of years, no joke, there were probably 10 to 12,000 stickers on cars and stuff all over the city.
Crazy.
And people didn't even know it's a church.
Right. Does it just have like
amount,
1122? Like,
it just says 1122,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it looks cool. And it was like a white car, you know, windshield sticker, whatever,
Yeah.
rear window sticker. I can't tell you the number of people that would just see all the stickers, Google what is 1122, be like, "Oh, that's interesting. Maybe we'll check it out." Like, we hear about it in their baptism videos
all the time. Yeah.
all the time.
That's so
It's
cool.
crazy.
Yeah. Hey, branding, man. Some
I
people,
know.
so you know, people, you know, think church and marketing and all the kind of things is weird, but you know, it's marketing, it's branding, it brought people to the church, and then they're getting saved. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and we have $0 in our marketing budget because it's things like that.
Right.
It's just like that was just a guy just did it. You know,
Yeah.
It was just organic. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay. You also wrote a book, so let's just spend a few minutes. I want to be respectful of your time, so we'll speed through it. But you've written a couple books, but your newest book, Anything is Possible, is amazing. So what inspired you to write the book? You know,
Well,
what was it like writing a book too? I mean, it's a lot of work.
I really, well, man, I've been preaching I've preached pretty much every week except for like vacation or whatever.
Yeah.
For the last 30 years. So, you know, you get all this stored up content, and when your church blows up, everybody's like, "Oh, you know, you should write a book. You should write a book." And I was like, "Nah, not yet." So I really wanted to wait until I felt like the Lord said, "It's time."
Yeah.
And just in the way I think about the two books that I've written, it's really like a 2-piece set, because book 1 is called If the Tomb is Empty, and book 2 is Anything is Possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in pastoring people, I can't tell you the number of folks that would come to me and say, "Pastor, I am in an impossible situation. Like, my marriage is impossible." And I would take them back to the empty tomb. I'd be like, "Hold on, but you're a believer, right?" "Right. You believe that God physically bodily raised Jesus out of the grave?" And they're like, "Of course I believe that." And I'm like, "Okay." And then one day I just said it. I was like, "Well, if the tomb is empty, then anything is possible. Like, if he can breathe new life into his dead son, surely he can breathe new life into your dead marriage." And so that's where the idea came from.
Yeah.
And so book 1, If the Tomb is Empty, we chase 7 mountains in the scriptures. We start on Mount Moriah, we end on Mount Calvary, which most believers don't know it's the same mountain. And we just track through God's hand in the Bible through these mountains, and we find a mountain that holds a tomb, but the tomb can't hold a body. So that's book 1.
Very cool.
And then book 2 is like the application of it.
Right.
I felt like the Bible teaching evangelical church needed a gospel saturated book on the miraculous. One, because I've read the Bible cover to cover and can't find term limits on the Holy Spirit, so I still think he does what he does. You know, There's no expiration date there.
Yep.
But 2, a lot of folks that focus on the miracles, that's exactly the problem. They focus on the miracles and not the miracle maker. And so we study 9 different miracles that really reveal God's heart, because the miracles aren't about the miracles. They always pointed to the message. Like Jesus, in the book of John, they're not even called miracles. They're always called signs, because signs point to something greater than themselves.
Right. Yeah.
And Jesus wasn't just trying to like flex his raw power. He was always pointing to God's redemptive purpose. And so we just, the anchor is the greatest miracle of all time, that Jesus came out of the grave. And, you know, Romans 8 says, if he did not hold back his own son, then can't we believe him for all things? And then there's also a chapter on what do you do when God doesn't do what you think he would do if he would just listen to you. Right.
Yeah, that's the book everyone's going to have, like, you know, rabbit-eared and book highlighted, because that's hard.
Yeah, and then interestingly enough, and so where I go is in John chapter 6. There's actually 2 miracles. There's the feeding of the 5,000 and the walking on water. But John 6 is where Jesus gets all crazy with his teaching and starts saying, "Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no part with me."
Yeah,
and everybody starts leaving.
Yep.
And he doesn't even explain it. I mean, post-resurrection, we know he's talking about the gospel.
Yeah.
And we're not actually eating his flesh and drinking his blood. We're taking communion to remember the gospel.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the gospel, you don't have him. I mean, that's what he's saying.
Yep.
But he explains none of it. And you got to imagine Peter is thinking, I have made a horrible career decision. Like, what am I doing? And Jesus says, do you want to leave too? Because he knows, he's like, yeah, I kind of do. And Peter's answer, man, is what you do when you don't get your miracle. He says, well, to whom shall we go? For you're the only one that offers eternal life. And then he says, because we have come to believe and know that you are the Christ. Most Americans want to know and then see if they're going to believe or not. But the offer from our Heavenly Father is, no. You're going to believe, and then as you are on the way, there's some things you will come to know.
Right.
And then while I was right in the middle of writing this book, I'm on a red stag hunt in Scotland with some of my best friends. And my best friend dies of a heart attack in the Highlands as I'm writing a book on the miraculous. So what do you do? What do you do? I'll tell you what you do. You just got to pick up your faith and pick up your doubts and pick up your unanswered questions and do exactly what Peter said. Where else am I going to go? And you just keep following after Jesus. And then also during the same time period when I was writing this, I experienced the other end of it. The family that I talked about, our original worship leader that I vacationed with and all that, his name's Ben Williams. We're on vacation together at Disney, and he has a grand mal seizure, gets a brain scan, and he's got a cancerous brain tumor. This was on a Thursday.
Oh my gosh.
And they tell him, you got about 6 months of normal life left. Within 18 months, you'll be in hospice. So, I mean, bro, he's got 2 girls. He sent me this text before he went into brain surgery. And it was like, all right, man, if I don't make it out, you got to take care of my girls. I was like, well, you're going to be fine. He's like, I get it. And he says this. He goes, well, they're going to need leadership. You're the best one I know. And I was like, all right, I got you. But you're going to be all right.
Right.
So they tell him that on a Thursday. That was at a hospital in Orlando. We have the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville. And one of the great things about pastoring a real big church is you own nothing and you have access to everything.
Right.
So like, I know all the Mayo people. So I was like, y'all got to get Pastor Ben in here. So we get him from Orlando, get him up here. They do a bunch of tests. They do brain surgery. He comes out of brain surgery and they're like, I think we got it. I think you're going to be fine. That surgery was 2.5 years ago. He is cancer-free, tumor-free.
Amazing.
This past weekend, he should be in hospice. He went in hospice. He was in the Atlantic Ocean with me. This last weekend, we baptized 1,125 people, and he was out there dunking people and still leading worship.
That's incredible.
So this book handles like all the breadth of the work of God in our lives and our proper response. What do you do, man?
Yeah.
You just worship him. Whether you get what you want or don't get what you're asking for. The key is that you get him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key. That's the abundant life, is you get him.
Hard, right? It's hard helping people like get to that place, I guess. Right? Like, it's about our relationship with God. It's about like knowing him, growing, raising your family in that, all the things, not what you get or don't get, but like, I don't know, we're Americans.
One of the things I learned writing this book is tragedy and trauma will test what your actual theology is.
Yeah.
Like I'm a preacher, man, so I know what I preach. And I just preach the Bible, so but are you really smoking what you're selling?
Right. Yeah.
And I ain't gonna lie, when my friend Bradley went down, all I could think about, well, first it was terrible. We had to like bring all his stuff home, and we're in Scotland, and I mean, it's just a train wreck. Anyway, I was supposed to be on sabbatical during that time. And all your like sabbatical coaches will say, well, you got to stay away from your church, because if you go to your church, they're going to make you work. And I was like, yeah, whatever, bro. All I could think about is I want to be in this place with these people. Luckily, because it was my sabbatical, I had like 8 of my buddies who are the best preachers on the planet. come. They were lined up to preach. It was like Matt Chandler and David Platt and just some, Ben Stewart,
You're
just rock
solid.
stars.
You
right?
have that covered.
And all I wanted to do was show up, man. I just wanted to come to church and pray the prayers, sing the songs, hear the word preached. And we have like a super responsive culture. We got these like prayer benches down front, and we make a big deal out of like the response to the message, to what God's doing. And I just wanted to get down there to that altar and pray. And though I cried a million tears or whatever, it still makes me sad.
Yeah, man, of course.
But I don't know, man. God is sovereign, and I know he's in charge, and I know he's good. And I can still believe Romans 8:28, that he's at work in all things.
Right.
And I also am confident there will come a day, and, he's going to peel back the curtain, and I'm going to step into eternity. And right now I only see just through a smudge glass, and then I'm going to see clearly. And I'm going to get there. I'm going to be like, look at you. You did it again. I had no idea how you were working all of this for your glory.
Yeah.
But now I see clearly how you were in charge of all things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's hard. It's like, but helping people like you're doing in the books and the church, and, like stay focused in the right place. Like, it's just massive, and like, I think about it, like there's all, you have stuff in your life. We all have stuff in our lives where it's like, those are the things that'll like drive you to God more and deeper, or, it kind of like shows your true character, or you'll go the other way. Right. But it's like,
it's usually a dividing line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pain is usually it's a watershed. You either run to him or away from him.
Right.
The thing is anybody that I've ever seen get angry at God because he didn't do what they thought he should do, which I get. And I'm not trying to minimize it, man. We're talking about people losing kids or battle infertility, or, when they do run away from him, they still don't find answers or peace or hope. They don't find any of the things they're looking for.
Yeah.
They just get beat up by an enemy who only wants to steal, kill, and destroy.
Yeah.
And isolation is one of his favorite tactics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Bible says that he prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. If you've ever watched Animal Planet, if you find that one antelope that's not with the group, it's dead.
Done.
Like, you don't even have to watch the end of the show. The lion is going to snipe that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
could you imagine though, like, this is the thing, like I think about, a handful of hard times, right? And you're like, could you imagine not having God's way, right? Like the church, your friends, praying, like ability to go to him, like the scripture to read and get comfort and encouragement and faith, and like not having those pieces and just trying to do it on your own and go isolate. Like, I just feel that makes me like sad for people, because that's such a hard, it just seems so much harder compared to what God gives us to go through that stuff with.
Yeah, I was in Israel recently. We do trips to Israel every other year, which are awesome. And we're in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? And as I'm reading through that passage there, it dawned on me that if Jesus, so he gets the disciples, hey, Peter, James, John, you all come a little farther and pray for me.
Yeah.
And he's overwhelmed and overcome with the sense of what he's about to walk through. And the second person of the Trinity, who is preeminent, spoke everything into existence, by his power holds all things together that are in existence, whether visible or invisible. He felt like, I need some help with this. I need some of my brothers praying for me. All right. So if Jesus needs a band of brothers praying for him, then who in the world do you think you are? Do you think, I got this? I don't need anybody. You're out of your mind, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
The enemy's got you teed up and about to take you out.
I think it's because people, I don't know this, but I think people get afraid, right? To call them in and to get your brothers with you and to tell people what's going on. And it's easier to hide from it sometimes for some people, I guess. I don't know. Sad.
No, I think you're dead on. One of the things we do here at our church, we try. We like, authenticity is not a strategy for us. We try, you know what I mean? I'm the first to admit, like in the middle of the sermon, I'm the worst sinner I know.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm the worst sinner I know is because I know you only know the sins that you've seen me commit like on Instagram. I know the ones that like are only in my head and in my heart, man. I know I'm a mess and need help. And the fake you's doing just fine. You can leave her on Instagram. She looks great.
Yeah.
But the real you needs a real Jesus who died on a real cross for the real you, man.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things great about planning your own church is you can make it as real as you want to. And it's pretty grimy around 1122, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it is grimy and I love it. I mean, I really, really love it.
That's incredible, man. Well, Pastor Joby, this has been awesome. I want to be respectful of time. Can I ask you a couple rapid fire questions, quick ones?
Yes, sir. No problem.
We'll start with the first one. No, we'll end with that one. What's a book that everybody should read?
Every pastor should read The Pastor's Kid by Barnabas Piper.
Pastor's Kid, okay.
Have you read it?
Is it about? I have not read it. That's actually the first time I've heard of that one. Is it about raising kids as a pastor, or
it's about Barnabas Piper is John Piper's son,
mm-hmm.
and he loves his dad, and he appreciates. This is not a hit piece on his dad, whatsoever, but it is an honest look at the price that the kids of pastors have to pay.
That's amazing.
And it ran over me like a freight train, man. I had all my elders read it, had all my pastors read it. My wife and I read it together. We shared a bunch of it with our kids.
Yeah.
So if you're in the ministry, and I think there's a lot you can learn if you're a believer and you're like the boss or the CEO, like people know who your kid is.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot that folks can learn from that.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Great. Second one, podcast that you're listening to right now.
I listened to The Undaunted Life by Kyle Thomas. It's equipping men to push back darkness. And
love it.
It's honestly, man, my son loves Joe Rogan, and I'm like, what are you doing? And I was trying to just find for him some kind of redemptive alternative. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm not, and here's the thing, he's 17 years old. I'm not going to like tell him what he can and can't listen to, because that's futile anyway. Right. But I was trying to find something, and then I went on that one a couple times and then got to know Kyle, and it's really legit. Yeah. I listened to that one a lot.
Yeah. I love that. Are there any, non-Christian or faith kind of based podcasts, not Joe Rogan necessarily, but any other one? Do you like, are there business ones or like things like that you're like, these ones scratch an itch for me that I'm really interested in?
Just a hunting podcast.
There you go.
Like,
that's fine.
That's all not really. There's so much like leadership stuff in the church world now, I think a funny one, John Christ, that comedian that kind of train wrecked his life for a minute. He's got one called Net Positive. Have you listened to that?
I have not listened to that one. I see him on Instagram all the time, and he cracks me up.
So it's that. Imagine, an hour of that kind of junk. It's him and like two dudes in there, and they're believers, but they kind of like make fun of church.
They totally do.
Also
it's hysterical.
But they try to explain to all the other people who aren't church people.
Yeah.
Like what like what see you at the pole is or whatever, so that one's pretty funny. The Meat Eater podcast, I like to listen to that, about Steve Ranella and Meat Eater. Yes, totally. That's a good one. All
right, that's good. Okay, last one. Where do people need to go to get the book? Do they just go to jobymartin.com?
Yep, you can get it there, or I'm supposed to say in anywhere books are sold.
And anywhere
say that every time.
jobymartin.com and anywhere books are sold.
Yeah, wherever you can get it, wherever.
So good. Well, Pastor Joby, do you go Pastor Joby or Pastor Martin? What's the?
Most people call me Pastor Joby if they were going to say the pastor word in there. Yeah.
Respect. Thank you for coming on. This has been great. I appreciate your story. I appreciate, seeing what God's been doing through you in the church out there. It's been really cool. So thanks for coming on the show today.
Man, my pleasure. Hey, and thanks for all that you do, because there's a bunch of guys like us that maybe can rightly divide the word, but we have no idea how to do all those techie kind of things that folks like you are gifted to do. So,
amen.
Without guys like you, we're just a guy with a bullhorn on a street corner. So
we're all playing our part, having a good time, using our gifts to build up the church. So love that. Well, maybe we'll get you back on another day, but thanks for today. Thanks, guys, for joining us. Definitely listen to this podcast, share it with your friends, tell your family members. But we'll see you next week on another episode of Modern Church Leader. Bye-bye.